Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Here we are again to talk about another Stormlight Archive prologue. Today we're going to talk about the Words of Radiance Prologue. This one completely surrounds Yasna, and we of course again are still covering the night of Gavilar's assassination. So this discussion is going to have spoilers for pretty much Words of Radiance and probably any other random Cosmere stuff that I can think of. So yeah, let's just say full spoilers for all Cosmere books up to this point. So yeah, with that being said, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and check out the Patreon if you're interested in early reactions or early access and reactions and that kind of stuff. So yeah, with that being said, let's begin. So, Words of Radiance centers around Yasna, and it seems to be essentially when she bonds her, not cryptic, her Inkspren, Ivory. So, we're kind of pretty much plopped right into the kind of a little bit into the event of the night, the party that they're all at. So we notice that Yasna is at the high table and she's looking around and she's kind of just making general observations of everything. And Dalinar is being loud and drunk and stuff, but she's noticing that people are kind of actively ignoring Dalinar, trying to be polite to not acknowledge that he's an alcoholic and stuff. But people will definitely acknowledge her as she gets up from the high table and leave to basically go and meet with an assassin, because she says little does anybody know this night that she plans on killing one of the guests. And I honestly find it very fascinating that we don't ever see who she kills or if she ever actually has someone killed. The context of the, monologue and stuff makes me think that she was considering having Aesudan killed, but just based on context of the rest of the series and stuff, I just don't really think that was accurate. So I'm really curious to know who she was actually having to, who she was actually planning to have killed. Was it a random ghost blood or like a random informer or something? I don't know. Or was it just kind of she suspected that there was someone there that was, needed to be killed or something. That's why she was making the deal with Liz. I'm not sure. It's really interesting. It's kind of one of those unanswered questions. Maybe we'll get it when we get more direct Yasna POVs, when we get her flashbacks and stuff. But I think it's interesting that she may have left the high table. I assume she left the high table before the uncommon visitors show up, because there's no mention of Elokar speaking to anyone. We're just told that Elokar is basically trying to keep Dalinar from drunkenly shouting and stuff. So this clearly is before that time. So as she walks through the party and stuff, she just makes general observations and stuff. But the thing that's most notable is that people are paying very close attention to her. People are staring at her. So the politeness that they give Dalinar and trying to ignore that he's just been this loud alcoholic, there is no there's none of that grace given to her. Because apparently this is also the night that she has confirmed and made it publicly known that she is a heretic, that she's an atheist. So it's really interesting that seems to be an undercurrent of all the gossip and stuff that's going on. So she's just leaving the room in a very casual manner, and you got all these people staring at her and like whispering and stuff like that and speculating about all this stuff. So it's very, very interesting. And then she herself says that that's kind of one of the reasons why she did it. She didn't want it to be, basically a rumor or, anything like that. She just basically wanted to confirm and say whatever. Yeah. So I think there's a lot more backstory to that, obviously, that we'll probably get when we get Yasna's flashbacks. It's probably book 10 or something like that. But there's clearly more to it, and I'm really, really fascinated to know about, like, the context of her, like, I guess coming out as atheist or being exposed as atheist but not denying it or something like that. I wonder how that entire scenario happened, because I would imagine that the information was made public in a way that was just, like, less flattering towards her, herself, which is why it would, ultimately lead to all these speculations that she just, is denying the church because she wants to, play in vice, which is a really common theistic thing that people think about atheists. But I'm just kind of fascinated to know the setup of that scenario, which, of course, again, I think we'll get probably when we get more Yasna flashback stuff whenever we get her flashback book. So of all the prologues, Yasna actually has like less to do with the more core fundamental pieces of the night, in terms of Gavilar's assassination and the presence of all these heralds and everything like that, because this is the night essentially when she bonds Ivory. So it's fascinating to think about the fact that this is like 6 years ago. So this is also the around the time frame when Shallan's mom was killed. So essentially, Yasna and Shallan bond started roughly at the same time, or Shallan's was a little bit beforehand because she had clearly already bonded a cryptic before her mom died. So the bonds have been going on for a bit, and there's probably even other bonds that predated that. So I honestly think that there might be more Deadeyes, new Deadeyes in Shadesmar than anyone even knows about. I don't think Shallan was the only one to ever break an oath that early on, because clearly these bonds have been like manifesting in small amounts and stuff like this in remote areas for a little bit. Because there's definitely a lot of people who probably had no clue what was going on. So they probably accidentally or incidentally broke a bond and stuff. So I think there's probably a lot more, going on out there. So it's a lot of fun when we get Yasna going through the hallway, basically going to go meet up with Liz, and her shadows are pointing the wrong direction and stuff. And she's kind of like basically holding strong to her rational mind in order to basically not be hyper freaked out by this, even though it's incredibly confusing and terrifying and stuff like that. But she basically remembers to a time when her mind was not reliable, and she basically holds very close to her mind being reliable and everything and being stable. So this is alluding to the time when she was what everyone in the fandom kind of assumes was in an insane asylum, especially based on her description of like the screams and like that kind of thing or whatever. So it seems like they put her in a place where they put a lot of the mentally unwell people, that, as we learn in Words of Radiance or Rhythm of War, that they just put people in dark rooms and just kind of ignore them or whatever. So maybe she was in a scenario like that. But there's a clear mention of the fact that she herself could not and did not rely on her mind. So I'm wondering what the true crux of that, like, quote unquote, insanity was. What was the stuff that was going on? Was she like being basically but she doesn't make any direct connection to what she's experiencing right now, as though it's like there were Inkspren trying to bond her before. So she doesn't make any like oh, this is familiar or anything like that. So it probably wasn't that, but it could have been another Spren. Maybe a cryptic was trying to bond her, and it just like didn't make any sense because she's far more logical than like the cryptic will want her to be. So therefore it ends up in a situation where she thinks she's going insane and it feels like she's insane because the cryptics are very cryptic. So there could be something in there. Maybe she's trying to be bonded by a different Spren and she just kind of never really realized it, and it just became this point in time in her life where she was essentially mentally unstable. So I wonder about that a lot. That's one of the questions, of course, I have about Yasna's backstory. But so when she basically is confronted by the Inkspren, it's kind of interesting to me in context of what we learned about them in Rhythm of War, because they even a lot of the Inkspren still are against humans. They're against these Spren bonds, and they're not friends. So it seems like the number of Inkspren that came to visit Yasna to see who was worthy of bonding her, if she was worthy of being bonded, kind of scenario. Like, it seems as though they were doing a direct challenge, because the one that pulls out a sword and she's like in the Shadesmar and stuff, and she basically uses a statue to try to fight on her behalf and stuff. It seems like a different type of test. I mean, obviously, it's a different type of test to see if she's worthy of a Spren bond, and it seems to be far more combative in nature. So I'm wondering if it has a lot to do with this, the fact that the majority of the Inkspren do not want to bond humans. So this is kind of like something that group came up with. Like, we have to put them through like a legit, rigorous test to see if they have the resolve and the, comprehensive, like logical level in their mind to be able to realize what's going on and react accordingly or something like that. So maybe that's why they challenged her in that way. Or maybe that's common among Inkspren, because we don't know any other Else Callers, so we don't know how their bonds, started and stuff. But I still think that's really fascinating, because like there is a bunch of the cultivation Spren that were thinking about making edge dancers and stuff, and they basically had a whole council and talked about it and whatnot. So they clearly have internal organization as to how they wanted to go about it. So obviously the Inkspren would too, because as we can tell, when they're in Shadesmar and we're in Rhythm of War, they are far more like a organization. They have like kind of a regular, they have infrastructure and kind of government in a lot of ways and stuff. So it wouldn't be that surprising to think that they have like meetings about how they would go about choosing a radiant if they were ever to choose, to bond people again and stuff. So I think a lot of that is what was going on. So I find that really, really fascinating. But I think that entire thing about learning about, her bond and like how it all started and stuff was fascinating. But, of course, it's not very much related to everything that was going on that night. So when we get back from that scenario, and she just, I don't know if after they just kind of, they kind of accept the challenge and like, do that whole thing and the ink spray and kind of leave. Was that them like accepting that she's worthy of a bond? Was she bonded at that point? Because she clearly has proto-radiant powers. So like, was she technically bonded? Was that Ivory? Like, so did they just leave and she was, bonded at that point, or did the official bond happen later? Because she doesn't, say the oath or anything. So I'm kind of curious about the mechanics of that scenario. But after that happens, she, continues on to her apartment and she goes to meet Liz. So this again makes me wonder about who she was planning on having assassinated, because she didn't actually mention, a target to Liz. She just basically talked about, if anybody offers you any money to come after my family, immediately come to me and I will double that offer and I will make it, worthwhile and stuff like that, which I think is really cool. This interaction is also one of those situations that I kind of took Yasna to be into girls, or just not into anyone. But the way in which Brandon has her describe Liz and like talk about her and stuff, like it comes across as being attracted. Like, so it just kind of made my brain made that leap or whatever. But it could just be, of course, Brandon describing her as a straight guy, kind of thing, like a voice accident kind of thing, I'll call it, I suppose. But I still find it very fascinating that she also had Zeth. She clearly had him and was put off by him because she knows more about, more than the average. She's clearly very plugged in and knows what's going on and stuff. So she has enough, knowledge to know that this guy is not as docile as he seems. So I don't really want to have much to do with him. So she basically traded him off. I wonder if she traded him off to that terrorist woman that eventually basically leads Vinley to everything that happens. So I'm wondering if that was the the way Kalad got Zeth, or if it was directly Liz to Kalad or something like that. But yeah, either way, it also kind of implies that Liz like sold him off that night. So I could be mistaken on that, because it just kind of implies it was in the past. It was like some time ago. So if he was sold off that night and he was already wearing white, and then that was far before the assassination plan, I just have so many questions about the continuity of how that happened. So I'm probably going to bring it up at every opportunity I get. But in general, I assume it's because we haven't gotten a lot of what, Yasna's been working on and what she's been doing and stuff. But the fact that we get almost nothing about the, fallout of this scenario, about this conversation, we don't ever even get any indication that, no, that's clearly not true. Because there are clearly people trying to assassinate the Cullen family and like have tried many times in many ways. But we don't get any indication that there are any like low level, I guess, assassins at the level that, Liz will be intersecting them and stuff like that, or intercepting them and whatnot. So like, I'm very curious about like this whole scenario. Is it just a level of Yasna's paranoia, like she's just covering bases, or is there like enough actual evidence that will allow for this kind of action? So I'm just curious about a lot of this stuff. I'm very, very excited to, when we eventually, probably a decade from now or something, get to Yasna's flashback story and stuff, because I want to know what all this stuff was. Because Yasna, even now, like, even though she was gone for a while and she came back fairly ignorant, because a lot of stuff, got discovered and confirmed and all this kind of stuff before she got out of Shadesmar. So, but I still feel like she's very much plugged in and she knows a lot of stuff that a lot of people still don't know, especially with the current state of her relationship with Wit, because she knew from Ivory that humans came from another planet and were the Void Bringers. So she already knew that beforehand. So what else does she already know that we won't, know or won't become apparent until later? So I just really love the fact that I feel like there's just so much knowledge just stuffed into Yasna's brain, and we're just like, oh, she just knows some stuff, but she's only going to trickle down, give us just a little bit. So it's like frustrating, but it's fun because it's like a mystery box that we just get to pick a little bit of stuff out of every now and again. So yeah, but that's kind of my thoughts on the Words of Radiance prologue. It's not very connected to the main event of what happened at night. But it does very much do this very early setup of how interesting we know Yasna's stuff is going to be. So I'm still, of course, very excited for her stuff when we finally get to it. And I really want like some just regular backwater random guy assassin to try to come and assassinate a Kholin. Because at this point, it doesn't even matter because like everybody's a Radiant. I mean, Adolin's not. He's going to be something new and unique and interesting, I hope. And I, am very much banking on. So yeah, I'm really hoping for that. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it more in the comments down below. What do you all think about the Words of Radiance prologue? Words of Radiance is my favorite Stormlight book that has come out so far, but honestly, the prologue is my least favorite of all the prologues that we have so far. So I find that fascinating. Let me know in the comments down below, which one is your favorite prologue? How do you feel about the Words of Radiance prologue? Do you think it is a little too disconnected to the main story to kind of fit perfectly the way the others do? Let me know all your thoughts about that in the comments down below. So as always, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and if you're interested in Patreon, you want to see some early access videos and some reactions and stuff, make sure you check that out. The link is in the description. So as always, I will talk to y'all next time. Peace.